And we're back on the live stream with Lynne Weaver, the co-founder of Three Weavers Brewing in Los Angeles. Welcome, Lynne.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So I think this is your second appearance on a live stream broadcast for us. You were with us in Santa Monica, and that was before you did the deal with Canarchy, which was announced about 2 months ago now.
Yeah, mid-July.
So I know it's still early days, but what have you learned? I mean, it's still fresh, and you haven't had much time to get integrated into the system, but what have you learned so far?
It's been incredible. I can't say enough about the Canarchy guys. They give us an opportunity to take advantage of so many things that have come our way, and some of the connections that I have, I've been able to parlay it into the whole entire platform as well.
So what are some of those opportunities?
Well, for us, there are certain opportunities that come with a really large price tag, just for Three Weavers in our home territory, and so they are now coming to fruition because of the fact that we do have a little bit more backing. We have deeper pockets to be able to make some choices that will really make a difference within our own home market.
Now, is that more operational, or is that more out in the trade in terms of marketing and sales investment?
I believe it's both.
Okay.
It's getting our brand out in a better marketing manner. That's first. And then also it's just infrastructure within our own brewery and expanding because, you know, Los Angeles is huge, and so we have a lot of room to grow there as well.
Yeah. Now, the LA beer scene a few years ago was really nothing like it is now.
It's pretty rad.
Yeah,
we're 70 plus strong.
Yeah, it's grown up really quickly, and you've been there since 2013, kind of going through that process. Maybe talk to me a little bit about just how much it's evolved over the last 5 or so years, and what the most noticeable differences are from when you started to today.
I feel like there's much more of that community tap room, tasting room feel. With a lot of the newer breweries that are coming up. There are very few breweries in Los Angeles that actually have the space and the capacity to really grow. I mean, I probably can count them on one hand that are able to really be able to get into that chain kind of reset type of white space that's really open right now in Los Angeles. But I think that as time has gone along, it's gotten a lot easier. I think that the folks before me, like the Eagle Rocks and the Smog Cities, had paved the way for a lot of us more recent breweries, with what I call the last 4 years or so, to come on the market. And they've always been very welcoming, and our guild is super strong as well in LA. So we've got an incredible executive director. So as time has gone along, we've been able to develop almost kind of like this network of folks who are willing to assist all the new folks to make sure that they're doing things right, number one, but also to give them guidance.
Yeah.
So in the sense that there's just more of us, it's awesome. It's going to end up being much more of a local tasting room type of effect, not necessarily on the production side, like a huge production brewery, but it makes it very unique, and there's variety then.
Yeah, and it's funny that you sort of mentioned that. I was trying to remember back to, gosh, maybe it was like 4 or 5 years ago. It might have been 4 years ago when we did a Brew Talks event at Angel City. And I remember kind of walking around the neighborhood there and going to a couple restaurants. And at that time, it was still very import-driven. At least the beer selection was very import-driven, which I suspect it still is today. And, you know, beers from larger, out-of-state producers. And it seems like what you're saying now is that the local companies are starting to pick off some of those handles and starting to gain more share.
I would agree. And it's not even just out of state, it's out of region. So we just have never had a huge amount of production breweries to be able to fill shelves. And when I say fill shelves, I'm talking about the Ralphs, the Vons, the chain kind of segment. And we're underrepresented in that area. Even though our population is so large, I still feel we're underrepresented. And it's now at that point where we've got to really work hard to be able to get those chains to recognize that the consumer really wants that local brand on the shelves. And they're looking at the number of SKU counts, you know, across all of their stores nationally, and are not necessarily so interested in adding another SKU, but at the same point, having all of these out-of-state brands filling our shelves as if they're the only local craft option is a bummer. It's a bummer. But, we're all working towards changing that.
So the retailers are saying that they want more local options and they want to have the support from a brand that is based in LA that has the capability to give them what they need?
No, I think it's the opposite. I think that they don't even know that there are the local brands available to be able to fill those shelves, or else it's just a logistical nightmare to be able to get those brands into that shelf and stocked and such. So one of the other challenges that small breweries are facing has to do with the limited amount of distribution that's available. And unless you have distribution, you're not going to be able to get onto that chain shelf.
So is that what Canarchy was interested in then with Three Weavers, was sort of that open highway that appears to be there for a brand like Three Weavers?
I think that that's one of the things that attracted them. We, at the end of 2017, were really on a fast clip on our growth, but that was predominantly on premise. Our white space is huge on the off premise. We really didn't have any resets. We were in the Whole Foods and that type of stores, but not on the Ralphs and the Vons schematics and such. And so we have a lot of ability to be able to kind of gain momentum in that space, and we have the space to be able to increase our production to be able to do that and to meet those needs.
Yeah. Now we talked about launching in 2013 and going through the transaction with Canarchy in 2018. That's a pretty quick timeline to go and partner up with someone. What stopped you from wanting to kind of go at it 100% by yourself independently?
Because it's hard. Number one, starting a brewery is not easy. It's not an easy thing. Maintaining a business is also not an easy thing. I've never done it before. I recognize where my strengths are and what my weaknesses are, but it's also an amount of risk. And being so heavily invested in one item, it's scary. I have responsibilities to my family and to my 25 employees. I didn't want to mess it up. I really didn't want to make a misstep. And to add more production, it was one item, but it was also kind of like other opportunities that I wanted to take on as well within beer. I'm not going anywhere. I'm still running strong at Three Weavers, and it's just nice to have somebody else to talk to about decisions and how to perceive and move forward and how we're going to end up growing. So it's not just one perspective, but a mind share of experience that I can draw upon to be able to maneuver correctly. So it's a really big deal, and it was the best way I could put it is I didn't want to be out there in the middle of the ocean, tiny Three Weavers, and not know what's coming, that there's a huge storm coming. I didn't want to be out there by myself, and I wanted to be with a group of folks, kind of safe in a harbor, rather than by myself.
Yeah, or in this case, maybe you guys are in a submarine and you guys are kind of able to go beneath the surface. The storm's up top, and maybe you guys are able to kind of...
Yeah, you know what? That's a fantastic analogy. I'll start using that one instead.
You can have that one.
Yeah, because that travels. That's travel, and you're getting someplace rather than staying in one spot, because we are definitely moving fast.
Yeah. Now, in terms of the future for Canarchy, to the extent that you're able to share, do you have a sense on what their strategy is? It clearly looks regional. And I think they've said as much that, hey, we want to find these partners in different regions of the country, but kind of what's next for Canarchy? Do they still have appetite for deal making? Do you have a sense on what regions they're looking at? Are they...
Well, I think that you could just look at their website and see the map and figure that one out really pretty easily. In the sense of next transaction or anything like that, the market is really kind of very interesting right now. Nobody's really doing too many transactions.
Yeah, it's pretty quiet.
Yeah, and so I think that, I think that they're going to kind of step back a little bit, my guess. I would, at least, because there's a lot of uncertainty in certain market spaces, and just to kind of settle into what they've taken on already.
Right.
2 in the last, 4 months? That's a lot. And so I'm hoping that they slow down and focus on us a little bit, so that way we can get to where we need to be and then to keep on going.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Now, when you talk about how quiet the deal making has been in the craft space, and you start to think about just kind of overall what's happening in the marketplace, how competitive it how competitive it is. You talked about, what, 70 breweries in the LA area, almost 950 in California, there will be 7,000 breweries in the United States before the end of the year. That's a whole ton of competition that's out there, and a situation where growth is really slowing down overall. There's still some opportunities in the long tail, and we're seeing some brands do quite well, but after you get to 3 or 4 years in, things get really challenging. How much of that played into your decision to want to execute a transaction, just kind of seeing what you see out there?
My desire to partner with Canarchy or to partner with a strategic really came down to foreseeing the economic indicators. Bart Watson is an incredible economist, and just from my own background, I watch and I read, and I knew that this growth stage that we were going through 2 years ago, it couldn't last forever,
Right.
but there were going to be indicators showing where those slowdowns was going to happen. Even though we were growing at an extremely fast rate, in which we still are. I mean, like year to date, we're over 70% growth still. So we're not slowing down still, but we're taking that growth from someplace. And where is that growth coming from? Is it from AB or the large macros, or is it from the regionals now?
Yeah.
So that's the question. My understanding from the information that Bart has disseminated is really we're kind of starting to take that regional play. So in October of last year, when I was kind of like watching what was going on, the brewery had just been acquired by Castanea,
Yep.
and that kind of rattled me quite a bit. It was one of those moments like, oh my God, what's happening? What am I missing something? And then when the third quarter numbers came out, where a lot of the regional scan data was down, that's when I was like, okay, you know what? Those economic indicators are telling me something. There is something that's going to be happening,
Yeah.
and I've got to get ahead of it.
Yeah.
And when it repeated again, and the indicators were showing that in early December, that there was, in fact, more slowing down, that's when I was kind of like, it's time for me to kind of really dive into this and what's going to end up being the best for Three Weavers, my employees, and what is going to be best for our brand, even though we were still growing at such a fast rate.
Right.
It was one of those, I didn't want that slowdown and then be caught off guard. But at the same point,
Nothing grows forever.
yeah, even though I'm saying that there's a slowdown, but we're still healthy, beyond healthy. I mean, we're at 5% growth so far year to date, right, for the industry as a whole. That is fantastic for a mature market. We are no longer in the growth stage, right? In an economic cycle of a market, now we are in the mature stage, which you're going to end up seeing a more moderate growth, which is 5%, fantastic. Most industries would die to have a 5% growth rate.
No kidding.
But with that, you're going to have some closures, and you're going to have some consolidations like ours, in the sense of joining together, because there are some synergies that you can't get by being my size. Or now being larger or being paired with Canarchy, I am able to get better economy of scales on things. So
yeah,
it's
for
very
sure.
helpful.
Access to a whole broad range of raw materials, and certainly a lot of things that benefit a small business like yours by having that access to a larger platform like Canarchy.
Yep, but it's not for everybody. I would say that a lot of small tasting room breweries, it's not what they want to do, and that's totally okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
have bigger plans. I mean, like one of the things that I always talk about with folks about the decision of joining Canarchy, one of my biggest things was wanting to make sure that we try to own as much of Los Angeles as we possibly could. And you get the back and forth. Oh, you sold, I was like, no, I didn't sell. I partnered with. But at the same point, it's like, they get upset with you if they even consider that you're selling. But what they don't realize is that we can't defend craft beer unless we are bigger.
Right.
And together, right? And so for me to be able to fight up against like the Golden Roads, I can't do it by myself. And so I decided to partner with Canarchy so I can.
And a lot of different business models, and everybody has their own path, right?
That's totally true. Yep.
Awesome. Well, we're going to keep watching the path that you're on.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for the time.
Appreciate
it. Also, Lynne will be at our Santa Monica event this year, end of November. So if you're watching and you want to come see Lynne in person, come to Santa Monica. She'll be participating on a panel.
Yep.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lynne. Cheers.